Hello, everybody. Let's see if I can figure this out. So I am. Hey, everybody can hear me good?
To record the conversation?
Yeah. So if you guys hadn't seen, I'm recording this specifically for my wife. So I'm in a car again. Hold on, I gotta figure out this thingy. All right. So I am at my in-laws' house, and we're getting ready to go to a big party tonight. And so she's watching our son, and this is the topic she came up with. And hold on a second. I'm gonna set you guys down, figure this out. We'll be good to go. Okay. So she came up with this topic. I asked her, what do you think Stoicism can do for you? And she, for years, has struggled with anxiety. And I, for years, did too. And Stoicism. This is not going well, guys. I want to be back home in my office trying to do this. Okay. I'll figure this out. I'm trying to set it up on my steering wheel. Okay. So anyway, I asked her, what's a topic that you think Stoicism could help you with your life? And she said, anxiety. And I said, perfect. So let's get together with my friends. We'll talk about how Stoicism has helped us with our anxiety. And I quit. I'm just going to hold this thing. I'm just going to hold it. Okay. I got to plug it in now. So anyway, so she said, yeah, help me with my anxiety. I said, God, my friends are going to show you exactly how to do that. So I figure we'll record it. So if anybody has an issue with that, you can just take a back seat and I'll show your face. So I know there's some new people in here. Introduce myself and tell you a little bit about me and what we're doing here. So my name's Eric Ruth. I am an attorney in Milford, Michigan. I had a pretty traumatic childhood growing up, went in the military, floundered in life, trying to figure out what I was going to do for a few years, decided on law, not really sure why. But I found Stoicism about 5 years ago, and it changed my life. It made me fulfilled, got rid of anxiety, got rid of a lot of the issues that I had in my life, and it's made me unbelievably happy, brought me really good friends, and made my life overall better. And I wanted to share with you kind of really what I thought was a fascinating bit about me. So right now I'm 41 years old. I used to be almost 300 pounds, really fat, got back into shape. And right now I look at my life and go, man, I've never been happier. I've never been more fulfilled. I have everything I want. And I asked my wife, I said, if you looked at my life objectively, what would you consider things that most people would be anxious about? And here's the list that we came to. So my dad will probably die any day now. He's had COPD for years. We're very concerned about my child and autism all the time. We're older parents. He's only 3 now. I have $350,000 in student loan debt that I haven't touched in almost a decade because of deferments, and that's going to start again coming up. And whenever the Biden administration lets us start paying those, that was a funny way of saying, please don't make us. Those payments are probably going to be about $1,600 a month. I make decent money, but $1,600 a month I don't have right now. So we have no idea how we're going to pay for that. My mother has been essentially homeless for about a year, and nobody's heard from her in about 6 months. So we have no idea where she's at. And what was the other thing we came up with? Oh, I have 3 outstanding biopsies on moles. I had melanoma in 2016, and I had my yearly check a couple weeks ago, and we're still waiting for those biopsies to come back of 3 moles that are probably cancerous. So I look at those and I just smile. Like those aren't things that I can control. There's nothing I can do about them. I go about my day and live my day, and I don't care about those. I don't think about them. Every once in a while they'll pop up and I'll go, okay. Then when I have to deal with that problem, I'll deal with it. And that's what Stoicism has brought me. That's how I live. That's my mindset, that I have these big things hanging out there and they don't bother me. I'm a very visual person, and I like to think of ideas and concepts visually. And this is what I've come up with, what my journey in life looks like. It's a river. Life to me is a river. There are some people that talk about looking at your life as a train track and looking back and seeing all the troubles you've gone through and the track ahead and the troubles that you're going to face. I look at it like a river. It's winding. It's got, beautiful scenery at times. Life is great. It's got dark times when life gets heavy and, you don't know, you can't see anything around you, don't know what's going on. And on either bank of that river is, on one bank is chaos and one bank is rigidity. Chaos is when you go out of control and you don't care about anything, you drink too much, you eat too much, you have no control in your life. The other bank is rigidity, where everything is in your control and you try to control everything. And I try to stay in the middle, and I never have. I've never lived my life in the middle of that river. I am always bouncing between both of those banks. Right now, at the end of 2022, I am solidly in the chaos bank. We are going out and drinking and eating everything we want and having a good time, and I don't care about anything. Come Tuesday, when I set my diet plan and meal plan, it'll be more of a rigidity lifestyle that I live. But that's how I see my life. I bounce between those two things. But I tell you that because if you look in your life in that sense that you're on a river, I look at it like I'm on a kayak. I'm kayaking down the river. The river's moving. Whether I want to stop or not, that river is going to push me. I can try to go backwards. I can speed up if I want, but the pace of the river is always going to be the same. And if I look back in my life, there have been some hellacious rapids. There have been waterfalls. There have been really trying times, but I got through all of them, and I'm still sitting here in my kayak going through life. And I know ahead of me, there are going to be more rapids and there's going to be more waterfalls. And it brings me a lot of peace just in the fact knowing that that course of a river that has waterfalls and rapids and all those, trepidations coming up ahead, everybody else has that. Like I said, I found peace in knowing that everybody else has these troubles and has these problems, and knowing that I'm not special. My problems are not special. Everybody else has probably worse problems than I do. But knowing that they're ahead and knowing they're there and I'm going to have to tackle them doesn't bring me anxiety. It lets me be peaceful in the moment that I have and be grateful for the times in those calm waters. And I look at anxiety and problems ahead when I can see them, like, you're on the river and you look around the bend, you don't see anything up there. You don't see the rapids, you don't see the waterfalls. And I look at anxiety like, I know they're there. I'll acknowledge them because I know that I'm going to come to trying times, but I'm not going to prepare for them until I have to. So if I'm going around the bend and I see, oh crap, there's a problem up ahead, then you start preparing for it. But there's no reason to think about it or worry about it or prepare for it now. So that's kind of the visualization of how I see my life and anxiety and how I prepare for it and how I go about it. But that's just me. And how I've gotten to that point is by studying Stoicism and looking at the quotes. And I printed off what I put on the meetup page today. And for those of you that don't know about Stoicism, it's a very simple ancient philosophy that comes down to 4 core virtues, which I listed on the meetup page, which is wisdom, justice, moderation, and courage. And when it comes to anxiety, I specifically kind of fleshed out some individual things with what those virtues mean in terms of how to deal with anxiety. So wisdom, the Stoic serenity prayer to me is understanding that you cannot control what's not in your control. You should never worry about things you can't control. That's Stoicism 101, right? And the wisdom comes from identifying what is in your control and what is not. We'll talk about that. That's a very hard thing to do. And it's hard a lot in terms of accepting what you can't control and what you can't control, but it's very difficult at times to understand exactly what you can do to control those things. Justice is the next one. Every action that you do should be rooted in fairness and equality. Moderation, not being a slave to a thing, person, or idea, not having attachment to things that, if they go away, which everything that you have in your life, be it material possessions, concept, or a person, they're going to go away. You're going to lose those at some point. So you can never be so firmly attached to somebody that when that thing or person goes away, a bit of you goes with it, and you won't be able to stave off depression, and you'll have your happiness because you're not a slave or rooted in that thing or person. And then courage is the act. Thoughts, words, they're not actions. People are their actions. So you have to act, and finding the courage to act when it's uncomfortable is the name of the game, especially when it comes to what I've found to cure anxiety. There's a great quote from somebody that's a lot smarter than me that talks about, if you want to cure deficiency, if you want to stop doing something, you do the opposite. And when it comes to anxiety, for me, a lot of the times it was not having that courage to act. When I was overweight, I'd say, Monday morning, I'm going to throw away all this food. I'm going to go to the gym. And Monday morning, my alarm would go off. And that moment that I have to act and find that courage, I never could do it. So that to me is the hardest thing, is finding that will to say, this is my moment. How am I going to get up and do it and get out of bed or take this step or actually go through with an action versus a word? And these quotes that we pull out from various Stoic philosophers throughout the years kind of sets up the broad concept of how to deal with anxiety. But again, these are all words. These are just thoughts. These mean really nothing in terms of how to cure something, right? And it all comes down to your own individual will and the choices you make and the decisions you have in that moment to act. So as we go through this, keep that in mind, that to me is the one virtue that Stoicism can't give you. That's something you have to do yourself, is that courage to say, okay, I've got this knowledge, I've got this wisdom, I know this is good for me, now I have to do it. And I tried to pull up right before I got out of here in this chaotic morning of, having this meeting in my car and everything going back at my mother-in-law house. I tried to pull up a quote that is one of those slap you in the face kind of Stoic quotes. And it's, the idea that, I can't remember exactly what the quote, I couldn't find it, but it's the idea that, and I'm sure, Tony, if you're my resource guy, you could probably find it somewhere, but it's that this is your purpose. I think it was Epictetus. And he said, this is your purpose. You're a human being. You have to do this. Do not be lazy. You can't be lazy. Don't let the time go by. But it's like, yeah, it all comes down to the act, the courage to act in those uncomfortable situations. So at this point, I'm done talking. I'm done introducing myself and why I'm here and what I want to do. I want to turn it over to everybody else in this group and talk about what you found in Stoicism that has helped you cure or temper your anxiety and what issues you still have with it. I am somebody, like I said, I don't have issues with anxiety anymore. My wife suffers from the Sunday scares, as she calls them, 3 o'clock in the morning, waking up. Oh my gosh, did I do this? She's a teacher. So for her, it's always, did I prepare lesson plans? Am I going to walk into a classroom and have 30 kids stare at me like, okay, what are we doing? And she didn't prepare, or did she answer a parent email when she was supposed to, or something like that? And things like that don't worry me, because I realized, look, there's going to be a time and a place for me to do that. When I get to work, I'll take care of it. Laying in bed right now, there's nothing I can do. Now, certainly there may be some things that you could do, then go do them. But for the most part, the vast majority of things that I would ever have anxiety about, or that she has anxiety about, can't be cured in that moment. And if you can't cure it in that moment, then what are you worrying about? Worry about it when you get there. When you get around the bend in your river and you see those rapids ahead, now start buckling down, start closing the hatch. It's getting ready. And she can't, I feel like she can't step away from that anxiety of I got to do something right now, and realizing that's where the wisdom comes in to say I can't right now, right? So anyway, I'm going to shut up. Thanks everybody for coming. I'll turn it over to the group. Anybody has what they want to provide us with their wisdom, I'd love to hear it. Also, I want to let you guys know I can't see your hands a lot of times. Sorry, Tony. So let you, if any of you raise your hands to go next, I'm on my phone. I can't really see them, so just yell at me. So go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I'll speak up. I'm new to the group. My name's Jason. I live in Montana. I'm a major crimes detective. Spent the last 20 years in public service doing firefighting, EMT, policing. I think I've been on the kind of the fray of Stoicism for quite a while, and I think a lot of the values and virtues in the jobs I've worked has been kind of on that edge. I actually just read William B. Irvine's I think How to Live a Good Life just several weeks ago, and it was just like the key. Had some pretty significant events, three very significant events in the last few months. That's kind of prompted me on this like rocket ship self-growth change thing. And so just to kind of answer what on the topic for today, what kind of prompted me to speak up is the this too shall end. I've had a ton of anxiety, and one of my significant events hasn't resolved and won't be resolved for several more months to come. And I think that this too shall end has been probably the most helpful mantra or saying that I've repeated to myself. Jump in the shower. Damn, this is a great hot shower. I love it. This too shall end. Crank it over to cold. Damn, this sucks. This too shall end. And it's kind of like my little short doses of this too shall end has greatly helped with like my feeling of anxiety. So just wanted to share that.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate you sharing that, man. And you're absolutely right. That idea that, whatever you're facing it's not going to be the norm, right? It's not, I talk a lot about suffering and imagination because that's something that I was a goddamn professional at. And one of my favorite quotes that I've adopted recently is Mike had shared with us. This is Mark Twain's quote: "I'm an old man. I've seen many troubles, but I didn't actually experience a lot of troubles." That idea that what we've gone through or what we have to go through isn't nearly as bad when you're actually in it, right? I've been trying to get better about taking my cold showers in the morning, and I'm in Michigan. And if I go to cold water, cold water, it fucking hurts. Like, it's painful on my scalp. But even that idea that, this is uncomfortable in this moment, but it's 30 seconds, it's a minute. You don't live your life, right? If you don't think time is a temporal consideration that has a lot of impact, go sit on a wall and squat down and see how long you can hold it. And you're going to realize that 30 seconds is a long fucking time, but it's going to end. Every problem you have is going to end. If you have a bully at school, they're going to go away at some point. If you have a person in your life that you don't like, they can go away at some point. If you have an issue or a disease, at some point it's going to go away. Now, it may go away with the end of your life, but at some point it's going to go away. That was a terrible use of that quote, and I hope somebody jumps me for it. But I love that idea that you brought, that you're absolutely right, that it's going to end, and you have to have that acceptance that you're going to suffer, you're going to be uncomfortable. That acceptance is huge, and a lot of people don't understand it. But also knowing that it's not like it's not in vain. Your suffering is building something, right? It's making you a better person. You're growing. You can't grow without uncomfortableness. And the resiliency you're going to have in a situation that is really tough at the end of it, you're going to have so many better life skills, right? You're going to be such a better person on the other side of it, as long as you take an understanding and just don't go through the motions, right? So using my kayak theory, if you're going through rapids, laying back asleep, or, you're a sleeping passenger in a car accident, not doing anything about it, are you really growing from it? Or are you just going through and letting life do what it wants with you? If you take hold of that oar and you steer your direction a little bit and understand that you have power in that moment, you're going to grow. You're going to be a better person. So thanks for sharing, man.
Yeah.
Who's next?
I wanted to add real quick to that too, just because it prompted another thing. Suffering is resistance to discomfort. That was another one. Suffering is the resistance to discomfort. And that, like, are you suffering right now, or are you just simply uncomfortable? I think that's another one that's kind of ties into that. So thank you.
Jason, I want to say that's actually the book that got me into it too, about 6 months ago, and really jump started it. And I think I've read like 15 other ones since then. So it's been an avalanche, but he's great. And I think something that he mentions or brings up is he does the trichotomy of control rather than the dichotomy. So he breaks it up into a third bit that I think we kind of all intuitively get and understand. What is it, The Art of Living? Or I'd have to go look it up, but William B. Irvine it's his first book, whoever's asking in chat. So there's what you can control, what you can't control, and then there's the things that you can have a little bit of control over. And that little bit of control over is the stuff that I pour a lot of my energy into. So I can't control my health, but I can control going to the gym. I can control those actions that support it. But at the end of the day, I could still have, a biopsy that I have to deal with that I can't control with, going to the gym. It's those sort of things are stuff you don't have control over your full health. But empowering yourself and focusing that energy on the things that you can have control over is what's helped with my anxiety. So I haven't I've had bouts of anxiety in my life. And let's also, it's probably good we talk about definitions here a lot and making sure that we have the proper definition. There's medical generalized anxiety. You need to take medicine for this. And that's not what I don't think we should be talking about here in this meeting, because to say that we can cure that by outthinking it all the time would belay the fact that there is people that suffer and that that have to have medical intervention or things like that, and we don't want to minimize that too much. But the anxiety that is the emotion anxiety, I'd say that I've had bouts of it in the past. If it was ever going to be a certain time of the day, it would be going to bed type of thing. The neurotic anxiety, falling asleep. And we've talked about it a lot here, but journaling, I mean, that's been the biggest bit that I've gotten, my nightly meditation. You can do that in a journal, or you can sit there and think it out in your own head. You don't have to write it down, but going through my day and getting those things out. I think that plays into Mike's bit about the Mark Twain. Like, a lot of these are stories, and the story is what has power over it. And when you write something down and you get it out of your head, it loses a lot of that emotional connection to you because you're putting on there and you go, once you, I mean, 90% of things that I write down that I thought was something that worried me through the day they look crazy when I write them down, like, or they look lesser, they're like 20% of what it was writing it down and seeing it on paper compared to that rumination in your head. So I'm saying a bunch of things, but I really want to just get at that, putting the power where I can and putting my energy and doing the things that support me not being anxious are probably just as important as the thinking it through and just willing it or the wisdom of not being anxious about this item, but giving me the power to wake up and get my energy out by going to the gym. I like the cold showers too. I think the dopamine response has a lot to do with how your body reacts and the anxiety. Journaling and all those things are all like tertiary or like outside parts of Stoicism, but I think all together they all add up to less anxiety. And I've been less anxious in the last 6 months than I've ever been. But again, I'm not like, whereas my wife as well, Eric, suffers from anxiety, and she's, in the past has been during different times, medications, things like that, generalized anxiety is what she would say or what the doctors would say she has. So I'm not sure if I could cure all the way through there, but if I could help her bring her heights of it down from the peaks to a more general, that's a bad word, generalized, because I just said it, but a more general average would be something that I'd like to show her through Stoicism as well. So I might, if you offer this up as a recording, Eric, I'll probably show her as well to talk through.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, thanks, Tony.
Thumbs up to William B. Irvine, though, if you guys want to check him out. It's a great book.
Great book. And I want to throw this out there real quick. Another great book that I think everybody should read is Viktor Frankl's, I always fuck up the title. I think it's Man's Search for Meaning or Meaning of Life. And it's his story about living in concentration camps and how you still can find happiness in that situation, right? So check it out. Great book. And I want to touch on something Tony just said that we've talked a lot about, and I go back to my imagination thing, is if you think about what problems you have, and you've got to think about them objectively, right? And one of the things that I put down was Marcus Aurelius' quote of objective judgment. And that's a huge part of understanding your perception of reality. Reality can be a universal truth. It's what's going on, but your perception of that, of what the reality is and how your mind interjects the story and the narrative of what you think is going on, most times is a lot different than what the actual reality of it is, right? Because you put your emotions into it and you may think your perception is the true one, but a lot of times it's not. And journaling has been a magnificent tool for detaching from those subjective emotions in the moment and saying, okay, what's actually going on here? And you're going to realize that the problem you think is a 10 is actually a 3 or a 2, and it's a lot more manageable. And you can eat the elephant bite after bite and realize that it's not as bad as you may think. So thank you, Tony. Journaling has been a huge tool for me. And like you said, it doesn't have to be a thing. You don't have to sit down. I struggle at night doing it because I'm so busy and doing things and then just crash. And a lot of times I'll just pick it up the next morning and go, okay, what would my journal have been the night before? So journaling. Good one. All right, who's up next?
So I can go. And can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, so I for a period of my life, wasn't very long, but I was homeless for a while, and this was part of my young years. And as I got older, overcame that. And as I got older, I realized that during nightfall, dusk, I would experience a sense of anxiety because, and for a while I tried to figure out where that came from, but it was a sense of coming from that childhood experience. At that time, I needed to find somewhere to stay, right? And so my heightened sense of awareness and anxiety would chip in at that point. And that really spilled over into adulthood, where I would get this sense of uneasiness, during this time of the day. And so I tried to figure it out and after a while, I realized and start looking into why this was happening to me. You realize that anxiety comes from a state of worry and nervousness about something, right? And then what I do is look at the typical causation of that, and it's a sense of fear, right? It's a sense of fear of losing something, fear of obviously the unknown, fear of something happening, and then from my perspective was past experience, and and then the question comes up as to where are these feelings coming from? Where in me are these feelings? And I realized that it comes from several parts, either imagination, either guilt, um, faulty assessment, you know, and other things. And I think that based on your sense of anxiety, it could be procrastination, um, you know, unhealthy lifestyle that we live in, and certain things. Um, I was reading a book the other day, and it sort of expressed that um, in a more concise way as sort of an erratic or irrational thinking that sometimes drive these feelings of anxiety. And as I sort of drift into Stoicism, I realized that it was kind of easy for me to adapt it, because from a personality perspective, it just seems like it just falls right in place with my personality. And so as opposed to someone who probably have a different personality trait, it was sort of the natural course of action for me to go from a philosophical perspective. So, and one of the people that I focus on from a Stoicism perspective, one of the Stoic philosophers, obviously, and we have talked a lot about this in previous calls, is Seneca. And some of the things that he talked about, which is so profound to me in terms of reducing anxiety, some of those things Eric has already mentioned. But one of the things that he talked about is, is how much we need to work on the fear of death and the fear of poverty, or the desire for wealth, and how those things really drive anxiety. The fear of things happening to us, like some of the things I just talked about. And one of the things that he mentioned also is how, foresight is really a divine gift. But it also can be a source of anxiety if we don't know how to apply that. And I just want to wrap up by just saying that using some of these principles has really allowed me the tools to really overcome a lot of things in my life. And I think I can adequately say right now, there are places where I work, and I've always had people said, why is it that you always seem to be calm about everything? And it's because for me, when things come up, I immediately put it into perspective. It's almost like I'm a robot that just collects information, and as soon as I collect it, it automatically gets filed. It gets correlated appropriately, and so I deal with it accordingly. And by doing so, what I realize is that a lot of things that I encounter on a day-to-day basis, it's really doesn't require immediate attention, or doesn't require any action at all. But somebody else looking at that, and the intake of information is that they feel they automatically assign action to it. And this is something that I need to take care of. This is something that I need to do. And so the sense of prioritization, the sense of how you, of the, importance you attach to certain things kind of overwhelm us, and drives a sense of, in my opinion, a sense of anxiety in terms of how we deal with some of these things. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, and Mike and I talked earlier this week, and one of the things we touched on is people come to these groups sometimes not knowing a lot about Stoicism. I have to remind people, Stoicism, I feel, is a practical guidebook to solve. I've never come across a problem that Stoicism can't solve for me, and it can do that for you. But if you haven't found your purpose first, you're putting the cart before the horse. You have to find what your purpose is. And in doing so, I think that is going to alleviate so many concerns, because in that process of finding your purpose, you're going to realize that anything else that you've really cared about doesn't matter at all. So for instance, myself, when I started losing weight and became a gym rat, right? I became obsessed with my physique and looking as good as I could. And I would start to stress and get anxieties because, I didn't go to the gym today. And I heard a quote from, I believe it was Epictetus, that talked about, so a friend of his was asking, I want to look like an athlete. I want to look like a Roman god. Is that your purpose? Are you supposed to be training like an athlete? And it's like, no, you're an accountant. Okay, well then go be an accountant. You don't have to be a Roman. And that to me was like, I'm a lawyer, I'm a father. Why am I trying to look great? I'm not going to end up on fitness magazines. And realizing that if I missed a workout, okay, that's not my purpose, right? Same thing with like news. I used to be, when I was in the military, consumed with the news. Granted, I was in the military from 99 to 05. So it was a lot of stuff in the world going on. And it was like, if something happens in the Middle East, am I going to be deployed tomorrow kind of a thing. So it was a little bit of pay attention to what's going on. But in the grand scheme of things, what's happening in Africa or Australia or Europe doesn't affect what's going on in my reality. My reality right now is, granted, it's 2022. So it's you on this phone here, but it's what's around me, what my eyes can see. And I don't read the news anymore because it doesn't concern me. I'm not somebody that needs to know the news, and not knowing what's going on in the world. How would I be anxious about it? Because I don't care. I hear people all the time saying, oh my God, the world's going up. My world around me, I'm in Kalamazoo, Michigan right now. It's a little cold. The weather's fine. Nobody's shooting at me. Nobody's being murdered in front of me. My reality, what's going on here, and my purpose. So detaching yourself from things that you don't need and doing away with the phone and social media. And if somebody comes to you and says, can you believe this happened? It didn't happen to me. I don't care, kind of a thing. That's the way I have. So what Mike's talking about is, if somebody gives you information and think, oh my God, are you going to act on that immediately? It's not my purpose to act on that immediately. If somebody tells me somebody just blew up a building, if I'm a firefighter, I'm going to have a lot different response than if I'm a school teacher a mile away. It's like, okay, that happened to them and it's not my purpose, kind of thing. So I think it's really important to identify your purpose, to identify what you're here for, and what's going to bring you the happiness, and detach yourself from all the other materialistic shit that doesn't matter. So I'll shut up.
I wanted to mention one thing, or at least maybe get it started for someone else to dive into deeper. A lot of times, we talk about Stoicism and we say there is no, good or bad unless it affects your virtue. And a lot of this we've been kind of not shitting on, but we've been pretty mean to anxiety as we're talking about it. It's like anxiety's bad. Maybe it's not always bad. A lot of the times it's telling you what is important to you, and letting it get away from you, and like letting the temperance bit of anxiety or the moderation bit of anxiety could be the bad part, because that's affecting your virtue. But we need to all remember that we can't always get rid of every emotion that we're going to have, good or bad. And taking a hold of it and not letting it take a hold of you is the more important part. So I think that might even play to what Jason's saying about resistance. If you resist anxiety, you're probably going to make it worse too. So understanding why it's there, what you're actually feeling, and maybe journaling or things like that can get you actually to tie into what the reason you're feeling it is. But immediately like fighting it and trying to grab that raging bull by the horns may be a bad idea. And maybe it's, just thinking about it a little bit more and getting to that. And then at that point, I was going to say that it is a physiological response. Like it's something that's, it's not just a thought. I mean, your body, what your body feels like when you're getting anxious. And some of the things that I do, like breathing techniques have helped a lot with me. There's one called the physiological sigh that I caught on from Huberman's podcast. And I'll put a link up for it, but it's like, you do like 2 breaths in and then a breath out, and you do that a few times. And like that sort of thing, like eases the feeling of anxiety in your body. And once you start getting the feeling of the anxiety down out of your body, then you can start thinking again. So sometimes it's maybe just getting out of that, like immediate, here it is, then you can think about it. But I just wanted to maybe make the point that it's not always bad. So maybe talk about some of the good things that anxiety's pushed you to do things too.
Can I just
Absolutely
respond
right,
to that
Tony.
for a second?
Oh, yeah.
I would respond to that for a second in this way, Tony. You know, do you a sense of anxiety, right? It also puts your body in a flight response, right? We do have reaction. Our body reacts certain way to our thoughts. It's not just a frame of mind. And we have a flight response that is triggered as when we associate anything to anxiety. And that itself puts a lot of stress on you emotionally. It puts a lot of stress on your body. And I think, and again, I might be wrong here, I'm just throwing that out there. And I think that may have or could have a long-term physiological impact on you as an individual, rather than dealing with these things. Like Seneca says, we have a gift of foresight. The way we use that could be detrimental to us, and it could be helpful to us. And that gift of foresight is really being able to identify issues that could potentially lead to anxiety and address those in a more systematic way. Because again, one of the ways in which a lot of people, including the cynics, have actually described Stoicism is most of them have actually referred to it as a common sense approach to life. And so I think that allowing your body or allowing your mind to go through the sense of any prolonged anxiety with the hopes that it will help you to address some other issue, I'm not sure I would want to take that approach. I would want to take the Seneca approach where I am common sense.
I was trying to share a video and it went bad. Mike, I think I was more getting at that just the 5 or 10 seconds of feeling the anxiety or things like that to let you know that you're that maybe you shouldn't do a particular thing, and just being more in tune with your body, not doing nothing about your anxiety. But I was more getting at it that sometimes you need to not be aware of why you're feeling a thing could be just as wrong as completely ignoring it, or maybe, I don't know, a better way of describing it, or it's just that it is telling you something. So to not take in that information is more what I was getting at. And you would file that information away and then use that anxiety using your way of life that you were speaking of earlier. So you would later on feel like, why was I being anxious during that day, as you're reflecting later on at night, and maybe use that to further your actions. So maybe, I don't know if I described it that well, but I didn't really mean sit in your anxiety.
Yeah, I think, so going back to my visualization of you're kayaking on a river of life, right? And you're going to feel anxiety before I go into court and argue a big motion. When I was in the military, before going into an endeavor, like, you have anxieties, and those are natural. They're normal. They're it's the uncertainty of what's going to happen. But I always love it now, because if I'm feeling anxiety looking ahead at a task, it's because I haven't prepared as much as I should. And I got to go back and look at what can I control. And if I look at the landscape of what I'm about to face and say, okay, I've checked off every box of things that I know I can control, double check to make sure I've looked to see if there's things that I can and can't control, it alleviates anxiety. It's gone. Once you realize that there's nothing more that I can do about something, it's going to be gone. And a lifetime of that worry of going into every situation, seeing those rapids ahead on your river, going, oh shit, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Maybe you start, trying to oar backwards. That's going to talk about the physiological, like, your heart's going to explode, your hair's going to fall out, like, it will kill you. The stress of worrying about that when you can't do anything, that river's going to fucking push you whether you want to or not, right? So go along with it at the very least. Don't try to backtrack. But that anxiety of like Tony talks about, of an event before it happens, to me is the perfect barometer for, did I prepare for this? Think about in school, getting into a test. Have you ever been excited to take a test? You were excited because you prepared for it. You knew the answers. You go into a test and you're anxious because you know how to do, because you didn't fucking prepare for it, right? So you got to go back and journal about that and say, what can I do better next time? Learn from it. But
can I challenge you on that statement real quick? Or
please, please, please.
and I don't want to really challenge. I just want to give a different perspective. I would also say, what I heard you say was, excuse me. Can you guys can hear me fine, right?
Yep.
All right. You feel good when you go to a test because you know what you're going to do. You also said you have anxiety because you don't know the answers. I would also put an and in there. Maybe it's because you're not in the right place. Maybe you shouldn't be taking those tests. So that's
right.
where I have fun with my anxiety and try to figure it out. And so I will hush on that one, but that's my thought on that.
Bruce, I'm so glad you said that, man. Like, there are times, like, so I'm a lawyer, right? And I was at a firm doing insurance defense. And every day I'd go in there and I'd be anxious about doing my job. And I fucking hated it every day. And I was anxious, like, I'm going to screw this up and somebody's going to hate me. Guess what? It's because I shouldn't have been there. Should have never been an insurance defense attorney. And now I do probate and I'm happy as shit, right? So absolutely use that as a barometer of, one, I didn't prepare. But two, is this something that is actually going to make me happy? Is this actually my purpose? Is this what I was made for? Is this how I can use my skill set in life? 1000%. Thank you for saying that.
I have something to say, Eric.
Please. Hey, Lisa.
Hi. So the thing that's coming up to me or for me is obeying nature. Like the thing that when you were sharing is nature is working with us, not against us. So I was thinking when you were saying about the river and how you're going down this, you kept thinking about the rapid river. And I'm thinking about what happened to the lazy river. Like what happened with your favorite beverage? And you're like, it's a nice sunny day, you're holding onto branches, and you're going down, and maybe it's like a different type of visual. Like, I don't know. That's what I was thinking. But what comes to my mind is meditations, Marcus Meditations. And it's in the book of number 4, the 4th book. And it says, I'm learning about obeying nature. Our inward power, when it obeys nature, reacts to events by accommodating itself to what it faces, to what is possible. It needs no specific material. It pursues its own aims as circumstances allow. It turns obstacles into fuel. And then down below it says, people try to get away from it all. They go to the country, to the beach, to the mountains. You always wish that you could too, which is, he says, idiotic. You can get away from it anytime you like by going within. Nowhere can you go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul. And it says here, especially if you have other things to rely on, an instant recollection and that there's complete tranquility. And by tranquility, I mean a kind of harmony. So keep getting away from it all like that. Renew yourself, but keep it brief and basic. A quick visit should be enough to ward off all and send you back ready to face what awaits you. And so I was thinking to like kind of recap what I was just saying before, that it's always, to me, it's contemplation to empty out and then meditation to receive. So you're constantly removing all the toxic things in your soul, and meditation heals you from it. It's like you're sewing up what was let go. And I was just thinking, like, I just want to be on the lazy river as much as possible. And like with my drink in my hand, and like I see the river as sparkly, and it's obeying nature to me. What gives me that visual. I obey it, but nature is working with us, not against us. And I want to work with nature. Yeah. That's what I got from your river. I don't know.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. When it comes to nature, you have to go with what's going to happen, right? You have to accept that. It's like what, Jason said earlier, that you have to accept that this is going to happen, right? And once you do that, you're going to have such a peaceful journey through life to know that everything that's going to happen is going to happen. I can't stop it. You're one human being. You're a human being on this planet, and you don't mean shit in the grand scheme of things. But that's the grand scheme of things, so the life around you. But in your world, he talks about the toxicity in your soul. That's imagination. Those are words you came up with in your head and said to your mouth hole. That's crap that you made up, right? So what's actually going around you? And I would argue to anybody that if my visualization of life as a river, that river 99% of the time is calm and lazy and ain't shit going on. It's the imaginary demons that we create in our lives that we think are bad. No, it's not. Your river's fine. Now look, there are going to be some boulders that plop down in front of you that you're going to have to navigate around. Are you really navigating around you, or is that water going to push you around it on its own? But if you're not prepared for it, you could get bumps and scrapes along the way, right? So I love my visual of my river, and that's life and things like that. But it's to make you understand that it's bendy and it's windy and there's dark up ahead and there's dark behind you. But it's also important to realize that you've been through some shit in the past. You went through those boulders in the water and you got around them. You may have had some scrapes and scratches because you weren't prepared and you weren't paddling as fast as maybe you should have. But guess what? You're still fucking here today. And you're going to be here when those boulders come in the future. And one of my favorite quotes from Marcus Aurelius is, never let the future disturb you. You will meet it if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present. And I like that quote because it was a friend of mine that was going to be a new father. And I was a new father a year and a half into it. He said, what the fuck am I doing? I don't know how to be a father. Like, he didn't have a father in his life. He's like, there's no, it's the adage that you leave the hospital and they don't give you a manual. And then you realize, like, I got to keep this baby alive or I'm going to jail, kind of thing. Like, how do you be a parent? I said, right here, as you sit here right now today, if I came to you with a problem, do you think you could solve it? Pretty simple elementary problem. Like, you walked out of your front door, you got a flat tire. How are you going to get to work? Can you solve that problem? Do you have the mental wherewithal to do it? Yeah, you think you can. So why the fuck would you think that you couldn't solve any problem in the future? When you're in that moment, you have reason, you have your mind, you have the ability to act and do things. So why would you worry about how you're going to act in the future, knowing that you can do it right now and you've done it in the past? Your track record tells you that you can get through anything you want to. And if you don't want to do it, life's going to push you through it anyway. It's just a matter of how many scrapes and cuts and bruises you got on you when you get through it, past it. Hopefully that visualization makes sense to everybody. But yeah, thanks, Lisa. I absolutely appreciate what you said. And you got to realize that, guys, the nature of life is going to happen whether you want to or not. You've got to be prepared for things. You have to act. You have to have the courage to stand up and say, okay, this is what I can control. This is what I can't control. I'm not going to worry about that. Not even going to pay it attention. A pure Stoic sage, in the sense of it, would never even let a thought come to their head about something they can't control. We as fallible humans, every damn day, are going to have thoughts that go, can I do anything about that? Right? You have to analyze it, and you have to use your reason to say, okay, I can't touch that. I can't change the weather. I can't change my health. I can't change what that person thinks of me. That's their opinion. I can't change what, the level of asshole that my boss is. I can't change the level of asshole my kid is. I can't change, anything that I can't control. But the key and the hardest thing for me is understanding what I can and can't control. And that's where, to me, the story that I tell myself and the imagination I set up in my head tells me that I can control a lot of things, that I'm a lot more special, and I'm this all superpower being that I can control a lot. No, I can't. I can't do shit. I'm a simple guy sitting in a parking lot in a car right now in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I am simple. I'm not special. So realizing that, I realize I don't have any of the problems. I can't take on, the issues that a president of a country has, or somebody that has a lot of real issues in their life, kind of a thing, So was my 2 cents. Thanks, Lisa.
Hey, Lisa, to give a little bit of context, I think it's important with Marcus to think about where he's writing his books. He was on a military campaign, I think, in like Northern Europe, and it was cold as hell. And he was outside, and I think he was kind of like a little bit of a sickly guy too. He wasn't in pure health. So when he's saying people are talking about going to the beach and all this sort of stuff, and he has this mental, what do you call it, his citadel, inner citadel that he goes to, in his place of peace and, in equanimity. It's something to remember where he was. He could have been an emperor living in a palatial palace in, Sicily or somewhere, awesome, right in the Mediterranean. He had that choice and he had that power, but what he was choosing to do was what he thought was the wise and right thing, was being with his soldiers, as close to the front as he could be. So just kind of put that more in the context of what he means by people are saying they want to be in these vacations, and he's making the conscious choice to not do that and put himself in, where he was.
Yep. Anybody else got anything else they want to share? Talk about? All right, let's go back to the quotes then. So one of the things that I put up on the meetup was Marcus Aurelius talking about the 3 things we need for a happy life, right? So the first one is objective judgment that we talked about, detaching yourself from your own emotions and your subjective view of what's going on, and trying to understand really what's at stake here. And that's what it is. The second one was an unselfish action. And that's what we talk about, the courage to act, to realize that right now, at this very moment, you have to do something. And I love that he says unselfish, because to me, the default human reaction is the A to B, do as little as possible, be as comfortable as possible. That's our default setting. Everybody wants to be comfortable. Everybody wants to be sitting on a couch with their feet up, a drink of something warm, a warm shower, comfortableness. We always seek that. That's what we want. When you go on vacation, very few people are saying, I'm going on vacation to hike a mountain. I'm going on a vacation to go to a fit body boot camp for a week. No, you go to vacation to Mexico or the Caribbean or somewhere you can lay around and do nothing, be comfortable. And acting in the face of that and doing something that is uncomfortable is where growth is. And there's a quote, try to pull it up. I can't remember, it's actually on my phone, but I'm not going to fuck with it. It talks about, would Hercules be Hercules if he hadn't come to face a lion, to face those troubles? Would any great person be great if they hadn't had that resiliency? Sure, there are spoon-fed, silver spoon babies that just get greatness by being born into a family, but are they truly great? Are they the leaders that we thought they were? No, because if you're going to be a great person, you have to endure something. You have to be uncomfortable. You have to get through the growth that uncomfortable situation provides. So that unselfish action of acting when you're uncomfortable, that's how you have the happy life that we all wish we do. And then the willing acceptance is the third one you have. And that's understanding what Lisa talked about. Nature around you is going to go on with or without you. So accept that you're a part of this, and you're going to realize that life on that river is a lot easier than trying to pedal backwards. Jason, you had something. What's up, bro? Jason, you there, bro?
Yeah, there we go.
Hey.
So I don't know if this has been answered, and I'm still just kind of chewing on this. So in the past, I've done shadow therapy, where you revisit, kind of the foundational experience that you had in life that makes you feel a certain way, and I mean, within 3 questions, broke me down, bawling, snotting. I'm not a crier by any means, and it was like a punch to the stomach. Amazing relief from that. And then also going back to referencing the physiological sigh. I've been experimenting. That was kind of the start. Was actually like, okay, that mimicked crying. Maybe I need to cry. And I actually was doing like sessions of crying, and trying to push past the shame and kind of the things I struggle with. That again, it was like popping the relief valve, on a pressure tank. It's so good. But it seems kind of like counter Stoicism, where I know they say that you're not supposed to suppress it or ignore it, but it seems kind of counter Stoic, and I'm just trying to how do these fit? How does that work?
Yeah, so let me give you my example. I have an attachment to my past and a ton of shame. So when I went in the military, and you look like a kind of a military-esque guy, so you may get this. I went in the military and I wanted to be a SEAL, and I trained to be a SEAL and got to BUD/S, and I lied about my eyesight the entire time. I was the guy that was going off the test. This eye was 20/70, this one's 20/20. And I lied my entire way through it and got to week 1, day 1, took a physical, and the doctor didn't buy it. He said, "You're fucking blind. You can't be here." I went through non-judicial punishment. They kicked me out. And I ended up back in the intelligence community, kind of working with those guys, and got to have a pretty cool military career. But when I got out and I was friends with all those guys, I would go and tell everybody that I was a SEAL and I had done those things. And I lied to a ton of people because of the shame that I felt that my dream had been taken from me. And I lived that lie for 10 years. And so that shadow therapy that you talk about, and going back and being nice to the person you were and saying, okay, this is who I was. How do I feel about that person? And that attachment to my past life was now making me make decisions presently, because I thought that's who I was. And that attachment to that reality, or that attachment to the imagination of the story that I told myself. Again, it's the imagination. What actually fucking happened? Did it really hurt me, or did I create this suffering on my own? And you're going to realize that once you do that examination, that the suffering that you think you had, it's not. Separate the event from what happened from what you think the suffering was. And the event for me was the fact that I couldn't see something. And that's it. Now, it was my response to that event, which was terrible. And I didn't know Stoicism and all of those things. So I had to live with a decade of lying to people and all of that shit, and that kind of stolen valor type stuff. But once I went back and I looked and said, look, that was the past me. I can't have an attachment to that anymore. And Stoicism tells you that you don't have to be great all the time. Be great in the moment today. Yesterday was gone. It's done. It's the past. It's the imagination. And you have to extinguish imagination. You cannot think about tomorrow. You cannot think about today, other than to take lessons learned from it, right? So if I'm focusing just on right now, this present, and what I'm supposed to be doing, that's it. It alleviates everything. I don't have to think about tomorrow. I don't have to think about yesterday. I think about right now. And we talked about in the past, Mike gave this to me and I'm so grateful for it. If you wake up in the morning, he talked about when you're a kid, you wake up, you're excited. You got the day, you got these new things. And as adults, our days kind of roll into each other. It's the same shit every day, right? You don't wake up excited very often. You don't have that sense of an 8-year-old, 10-year-old first day of summer excitement. And I wanted that back. So he said, look, wake up and clean the slate. Kind of what Lisa was talking about. You wake up, you meditate, you clean the slate. Today is a day. I can do whatever the fuck I want in this day. I have my power to choose how I respond when I'm presented with a decision, whether I do this or that. I have that willpower to choose how I want my day to go. And it's just today, clean slate every day, new day. The past and the behaviors and the fuck ups that I did yesterday don't affect me today. I get to choose how I'm going to do it today. Now, there's a lot to say in modern psychology of working on you and going back through and tying up those things. And everybody that I lied to, I'm in the process and have been in the process for 10 years of saying, sorry, that was not me. I had a traumatic childhood. Sorry. But wrapping up those loose ends and detaching from that attachment that I had of my previous self and the trauma that I experienced, and realizing that I am who I am today. I am my actions today, not my thoughts, not my fears, anything, what I can do today. And that is the biggest alleviation that I've ever felt in that anxiety of the past, of like, I get to choose who I am today. I could be whoever I want today. And then you, at the end of the day, journal, okay, was I who I wanted to be today? Fuck no, never, not once. When I journal at the end of the day, I've failed every single goal that I wanted to, but my day looks a hell of a lot better today than it did 10 years ago or 20 years ago when I was going through those things. So that's what Stoicism has taught me, Jason, about how to detach from those and deal with those and process those emotions. But I'll say this, we talked about this in our emotion. Emotions exist for a reason. They're a human reaction. They're natural. They're supposed to happen. You have to pay attention to them, but you don't sit in them. You don't wallow in them. So if you're feeling an emotion currently right now, sit in it, feel it, do it. But once it's gone and you've processed it, that's it. Anything you think about after that is going to be imagination, right? It's not happening currently. We talk about, this is a great quote from Epictetus. This talks about present anxiety. Caretake this moment. Immerse yourself in its particulars. Respond to this person or that person, this challenge, this deed. Quit the evasions. Stop giving yourself needless trouble. It is time to really live, to fully inhabit the situation you happen to be in right now. Right now, not tomorrow, not yesterday, right now. You are not some disinterested bystander. Participate, exert yourself, right? That means you have to work on what's going on right now. The past is the past. It's already behind you. You don't have to be great all the time. Be great right now in this moment. And when you fail, what you're gonna do, reflect on it and try to be better the next day. And when you fail again, realize that's the human existence. So that's what Stoicism has done to me.
Thank you.
I think, Jason, whether something happens to us today, yesterday, or anytime, I think our reaction to it is the way we perceive it, right? And in my opinion, some of the traumas that I have experienced in my life, I don't deal with those anymore. And the simple reason why I don't deal with those anymore is because of the way I rethink them. I go back and I look at them and I rethink them. Once I adapt the principles of Stoicism, it helps me to revisit those without the anxiety that's attached to them, right? To revisit them, to put them into a different perspective and to see them in a much, much better light. I can tell you, when I was growing up with my grandparents, I felt like I was the Cinderella in the house, right? I was the guy who did all the work, do everything, all the responsibilities, right? And
didn't look like Cinderella though. Sorry, Mike.
and to be honest with you, I grew up resenting that with a lot of real hurt. And once I matured, not just, as a person, but in my thinking, and I went back and revisit those, I realized, and I start really put those in different perspective. I realized that I gained a lot. I learned a lot. And I realized that I am the man I am today because of a lot of things that came out of that, so-called trial and tribulation that I used to describe that situation as. I mean, it's amazing when you go back and look at some of the things that you've been through and re-examine it and put it in a whole new perspective based on now your maturity in thinking, that really allows you to break yourself free from it. What used to be bad, it's no longer as bad as you think it is. And I know that's probably easier said than done, Jason, but it requires, I don't know if gusto is the right word, but it requires some courage. That's the right word. It requires a lot of courage to face that. Thanks.
I keep going back to courage and acting and acts over thoughts and words, but you're absolutely right, Mike. Like that's the hardest thing. And Mike and I talked about that this week, because I think in this discussion, it's easier for people to understand the concepts behind overcoming anxiety. It's easy to tell somebody, just don't worry about what you can't control. Well, those are fun words to say out loud in a combination that makes sense. But the act, how do you actually do it? It is so hard to make that first step and know that you're going to be uncomfortable, knowing that it's not going to feel good, that it's going to be a process, that it's while the suffering is going to end eventually, it could be a very drawn out, long process you're going to go through. But you have to remind yourself it's not going to be that bad. Try to think of things that you've done in the past where you go, my God, this is going to be terrible. And then you get into it and you go, not that bad. Or I was just trying to look up the quote. It's the idea that nobody suffers. I wish I could find it. It's nobody suffers. Their unhappiness is not contained to the present, right? If you think about right now in this moment, if you were to describe somebody as saying they're really unhappy in the moment, right here, as you sit there, are you unhappy? No, you're unhappy thinking about the past. You're unhappy thinking about the future. But in the moment when you actually start to act, or you're in that, quote unquote, unsuffering period, are you unhappy? Are you actually suffering? Is there, what's happening to you, or is it your response to it? And I think more times than not, you're going to find it's your response. And if you choose to be happy, if you choose to accept it, if you choose to look at this and go, I'm glad this is happening, this is going to make me a better person, which is very hard to do in the moment, you're going to realize it's not that bad. That the suffering that we endure as human beings, the suffering that Viktor Frankl endured in the concentration camp, which I think we can all agree objectively was just fucking terrible. He had humor. He had good, fulfilling life going on around him in a goddamn concentration camp, right? So our own suffering is usually just our imagination, and it's not as bad as it would be. So, but that's me trying to tell everybody that you have to act. You got to do it. That's the one thing that we're built as human beings, is to do things. There's a quote that says, you're human. This is your job, to get up and do things. This is what we're supposed to do. We're not meant to sit on the couch and ponder and think about our past troubles or our future troubles. We're supposed to act. That's what we're supposed to do. It's how it makes the civilization that we have around us so great in so many ways, because people have had the courage to act and do things and overcome that suffering. So those are my 2 cents, guys.
I have something I want to share real quick.
Hey, Ralph.
Hey, what's up? Happy New Year to everybody. Hope everybody had a good 2022.
Hey, it's our Hercules accountant. He said by Hercules, and we got him.
I'm glad to hear from you all, and thank you all sharing. Sorry I was late, but something happened to me just now, and it really kind of plays on this. So I'm not at home. I'm in Atlantic City. I'm at a hotel, so I wanted to get a workout in, and I was doing dead hangs, and I've never been in this gym before, so I'm kind of taking in the lay of the land. And I went to get water, came back to the pull-up bar, and I went to sit down the cup of water on like a ledge. And I didn't notice like this beam on like the rig or whatever. I hit my head so hard on this beam because like I didn't see it. Like I was moving like it wasn't there. I hit my head so hard, like I hit the top of my head, that my teeth, I couldn't feel my teeth. And I was immediately, not only like my head was fucking throbbing and I couldn't feel my teeth, but I was so incredibly embarrassed. and I hit my head so hard and my teeth felt so weird that I was like, did I fucking like damage my brain? Like that's how hard I thought I hit it initially. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, fuck, like how stupid did I look just like as I was doing that, banging my fucking head. So I could have like lost my fucking mind. I could have pondered about how dumb I looked, how everybody's looking at me and laughing, like, look at this fucking idiot just slamming his head into like metal poles and shit. But what I did is, and this is something that I've been trying to work on so much, and I hopefully am getting better at it days on, but I just like, I was about to do a dead hang. So I immediately jumped onto the pull-up bar and just squeezed the bar as hard as I could and just hung there for as long as I could. So I took anxiety and money, guns, cars, depression, anxiety, happiness, they can really be tools. So I took my anxiety of like, did I hit my head so hard that I'm like going to have brain damage or die or my teeth are going to fall out? B, am I going to feel shame because people are looking at me thinking how dumb I am? And like, I have this big red mark on my head because I just slammed my head into a beam. And now I got to spend Atlantic City with this red mark on my head, like a dingus. Or can I like just use this anxiety as like a tool and hanging on that bar? Like that was my second dead hang. I did one, got the water, came back, banged my head. But the dead hang where I was like really feeling the anxiety took just like not only the intensity of the dead hang out, but it also took away the throbbing of my head. So I used it as a tool. I hung there for as long as I could. And then when I got off the pull-up bar, I was still feeling like fuck my head. Like it felt like my teeth were going to fall out, but I'm looking at my teeth in the mirror. I'm like, they're not going to fall out. That's just like an emotional response to what physiological happens. You know, that's all I'm feeling. And then I'm looking at the other gym goers. Nobody fucking knows what's going on. They're in their own little world. They got their own little problems. And even if they saw me do that, like if they're like, oh, look at this fucking idiot, I don't want that kind of person in my life anyway. You know, if they were to come up to me and make fun of me about it, maybe I can use that as a tool. Like, thanks for the distraction from me and my throbbing ass head and like the shame of me just banging my head into objects. And also too, if I have a red mark on my head, I can use that as like a funny story. I'm here with friends and they can all laugh at me. We can make fun of it and I can use it as to create happiness or like a funny story potentially. And the best case scenario is I used it to fuel my workout. Like that was near the beginning of my workout. So I used it to fuel everything I was doing and used it as like a tool. And I don't think it would have done that if I wasn't mindful of that anxiety is just a response to things that are happening. And also that the emotions, the secondary emotions, and also the secondary thoughts I had because of that action were causing those things. So I just wanted to share that because it's not a big deal of like a story, but I felt like it was a good snapshot of what anxiety can do for you if you let it be a good tool for you. And I thankfully didn't have the wherewithal. I thankfully had the wherewithal to not act on all my negative emotions and thoughts that like, oh, well, this is the end of the world. My teeth are going to fall out. Everybody's going to laugh at me and they're going to kick me out of the hotel. So I just wanted to share that with you guys and Happy New Year.
Hey, thanks, Ralph. Happy New Year, man. Sorry about your noggin there, but it's a great example for me in that situation. Like objectively, if it happened to me, and it happens all the time, my response is check your objective. What am I here? What am I doing? And in your situation, it would be I'm here to work out. So get back and work out. And if you're injured, obviously you can't. But that's the mindset Stoicism put me in, right? Is like something happened. And my past self, like you, Ralph, I would be embarrassed and look around, like, let me see. And I would probably leave. And then create this. If I got home, like, why are you home from the gym? Like, oh, I hit my head. It hurts so bad. And in that moment, was it actually hurting? No, it wasn't. But that was the excuse I would use to get out of an uncomfortable situation. But now it's not uncomfortable at all because I'm there to achieve an objective, right? I'm there to do something and I have to do that thing. And if I'm injured, I can't. So I would just go for it, just like Ralph did. So thanks for sharing that, Ralph. I appreciate it, man. Yeah, and I think the one thing that we can take away from any of this is if you're feeling anxiety, look at the cause of it. And sometimes, like Bruce said, it could be because you're doing something you probably don't want to do and change your life. You don't like your job, go get a new job kind of thing. Or are you prepared enough? If you're not, go prepare yourself. But in any event, the overall theme needs to be, look, life's going to push you through that anxiety, whether you want to prepare for it or not. So why not prepare for it? Why not, saddle up and try to do something about it, identifying what you can control and let everything else go that you can't. But Thanks for that, Ralph. Appreciate it. Anyone else got some thoughts?
Yeah, there was something that I've learned lately. There's a proverb. It says, a problem shared is a problem halved. It's an English proverb. And it means that if you find a trusted person or people to share your problems with, like how we are right now, you can experience a great relief. It may not go away, but it will relieve the burden and the pain. So I found that for years I had anxiety because I would not, I'm very introverted, so I never shared my problems with anyone. It started building up worse and worse over the years. So finally I just lost it. And then I thought I better go find myself someone to talk to, a professional. I didn't have anyone close. So, you know, I thought, okay, I'll just go talk. I found a psychiatrist to talk to, and, you know, I feel a lot better. Although the problem hasn't completely gone away, it's just by sharing it with a trusted person, I feel like just a relief. So just something I wanted to share. I learned recently.
Hey, Kathy, I think
so much. You're absolutely.
I'm sorry. I was just saying.
Hey, I think Lisa G wants to go. She had attempted to speak and got over on the Lisa.
Thanks, Mike. Did you want to say something, Tony, to Kathy?
I just wanted to say that the using a therapist kind of really fits in, I think, with Stoicism, because a lot of the times when we use our friends, we expect them to feel what we're feeling or react or like take our sides and things like that. And that's not a very Stoic trait to want something for someone or to expect something from someone. And using a therapist or a third party that's their job just to listen and maybe not exactly engage in that emotional side of it kind of fits well with Stoicism. Whereas I think a lot of the times if someone thought of like the being stoic and like the lowercase stoic, you know, like how you read in books, like someone looking off into the sunset, they would never say that person goes to therapy or goes to counseling or would need to talk to someone. But understanding that could be a tool and using like uppercase Stoicism, what we're talking about, we should probably realize that that's something we maybe should be doing or is great for a lot of subset of people. So just something I wanted to say, that I think it could be very easy to think of Stoicism to be like, oh, you're a you know, perfect sage that doesn't need someone to talk to. But I think definitely a lot of people could.
Yeah.
Thanks. So hi, I'm Lisa. I'm brand new to this. This is my introduction to Stoicism. I'm in Walled Lake, Michigan, and I'm a lawyer in Lansing, and I don't know why I went to law school either. And but I'm happy. I do government work and I have a pretty high level job, and I'm a push through. I had a super traumatic childhood, left a pretty traumatic marriage 2 years ago. Then my dad died, and I just kept pushing through because that's what I did. I was stoic, right? Lowercase stoic. And then I just hit a fucking wall like in the spring, and it was like, I can't do this anymore. And so I am doing shadow therapy work right now that's been tremendously helpful because my anxiety was through the roof. And then I got led to this group just by chance. There was a link on a YouTube video I was watching. I'd never even heard of Meetup, and I found you guys, and I'm really grateful that I did. And I'm a recovered alcoholic. I've been sober for 14 years. And all the principles that you were talking about are so tied to the 12 steps. And it's amazing to me. And yesterday I attended a Buddhist meetup, something for beginners. And you know what? They were the same principles. And it's shocking. I mean, they expand a little bit on what I've known for the last 14 years. But I'm super excited. I wrote down all the books that you have talked about, and I'm going to look at that. I do have a question about how you journal from your perspective. Journaling is rather new to me because my brain works faster than my hands. So I've always found it to be difficult. And I deal with a lot of trauma in my work. I work for a state, I work for a state agency, but I represent a state agency where there's a lot of trauma and difficult things that go on. And like, I feel I carry the weight of that. And so I've just started journaling, and I did a journaling meetup last night, and I'm like, okay, that didn't help me very much. So I'm just interested to hear how you guys approach it. And thank you, and I'll be back.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. I want to jump in because you feel like I feel like this is right up my alley. So I had a traumatic childhood. I'm a lawyer dealing probate, so I deal a lot with like minor guardianships or older stuff, and it can be sad if you bring it home. So my journaling, I don't know what the fuck I was doing when I started this journaling. Somebody says go journal, write what, write anything. Okay, what am I gonna tell a fucking fake story? So this is what I do. I listen to every morning in my car on the way to work a little minute thing from Ryan Holiday. He's kind of a contemporary guy that's brought Stoicism to the forefront, but he's got this book that's I can't think of the exact thing. It's daily motivate or meditations, Stoic daily meditation, whatever. Just Google Ryan Holiday meditations, you'll find it. And they're like he sets them up by month, so there's like a theme. So like December was death, like accepting death kind of a thing, and then he'll have these quotes from Stoic guys, and then he'll have his little take on them, and then I'll go to work and I'll write out and say my meditation this morning was about accepting death, and then talk about my feelings about accepting death and how have I done that or haven't done that, and what I need to work on, and kind of objectively look at my life and apply that Stoic principle to my everyday life. And then the next step I do of journaling is talk about what's going on in my day that day. Do I have goals that day? Do I need to accomplish something? What do I want to try to hold myself accountable for? And then anything else that's going on, any thoughts that I have. And sometimes they're 5 lines, sometimes they're 4 pages. And then at the end of it, I go through my life, or go through my day, and I'll check back at lunch and see, what am I checking my objective? What am I doing? And then at night, I'll reflect and say, here's my day, and here's how I did it. So that's what I do. And I use that daily meditation as a prompt. So I know Tony and Ralph, those guys, will talk about what they do in their process. So I'll tell you, that's my thing. And it's been fucking magical. Seriously. And the key to it to me though, is it's nice to have that objective detachment in the morning to say, okay, here's my life and what I'm doing, this sort of principle, but the journaling, reflective journaling at night. It's so key because you got to write it down and follow up, read it, go back. And I look at my journals for the entire week, and I'll sit down Saturday morning and I'll read through them, be like, what was my week like? And then realize that you were a moron. You were imagining things that weren't really there. The problems you thought you had objectively weren't there. And it's also helped identify issues in relationships that I have that I'm, not giving enough attention to, spokes on my wheel. I talk about my life being a wheel, and each one of my priorities, my family, my work, me, my wife, those are all spokes. And I got to pay attention to all of those things to make sure that the wheel's balanced. And journaling has helped me realize, like, oh shit, I'm not spending enough time with my kid. Like, he's starting to be an asshole because he's craving attention. Or my work, I'm a billable hours guy. So it's like, I only hit 35 this week. My boss has been a dick to me. Well, hit your hours. He won't be a dick to you, kind of thing. So that's been beneficial to me.
Jason's had his hand up for a bit.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of throw out my experience with journaling. I've been told for years to do it. I hate it. I refuse to do it. Had started, quit, refused, hated it some more. And then I decided that to implement change, like we're actually hardwired to resist change. And so I realized that having discipline or having willpower is not enough. Like, you have to have an environment, you have to have a routine. So I naturally just adopted a 5 a.m. routine, and then have found out that there's like people who like Robin Sharma who have like the 5 a.m. club that preach all this stuff. And it's like, oh, cool, I'm already doing it. So 5 a.m., get up, make my bed, go shower, red light therapy, decaf coffee for the first 2 hours. And then I hit my journal. So I know myself, I'm too tired, usually in the evening, because I supplement vitamin D, and like by 9:30, I'm on the nod. So it ain't gonna happen. So in the morning, that's my journaling time, and it's fairly chaotic and hectic at this point. But what I do is I have kind of a discovery process, and then I have like my focused work. So I'll actually kind of like a shadow therapy type, where I'm like, fear, everything I'm afraid of. And I mean, holy shit, I'm afraid of a lot of things apparently. Like, there's like pages of this stuff, and just drilling and drilling and drilling and drilling and drilling into just fear. And so what I did is, my computer is I have a folder with my personal growth folder, and then I have Word documents for each subject. So I drill down into virtues, and I do research on virtues, and I have a lot to say about like honor. I also do negative visualizations and gratitude. And then I also have kind of a free flow where it's kind of like the meditations type, like kind of like into belief systems, like what is being a man, what is being a woman, what do I want out of relationships? And I just kind of open up these different Word documents and just kind of discover all these different things, and kind of play with it and just see what I come up with. So it's fairly for me, it's fairly chaotic. I don't have like an organized system for all the right and wrong, but I do a lot of that in the morning. So just kind of some ideas of opening up different Word documents, hitting on different subjects, and just why, and then kind of reinforcing then what you want in your identity or your belief. So yeah.
Thanks for sharing, man. I appreciate it. That's a pretty solid process you got there. And if anybody can get up at 5 a.m., it changed my life immensely. I'm about a 5:45 guy now. But having that time in the morning, if you can set aside, like, the worst thing I think you can do is get up out of bed and start your day. Mike has taught me that you need to lay in bed and box breathe for 10 minutes, and holy fuck, it's amazing, right? To set and clear that schedule for me. It's okay. Here's my day. And I, for the past couple of weeks, have woken up like a excited 8-year-old kid. Not this morning because I was a little hungover because we went out last night. But anyway, that's how it is. It's, having that time in the morning to prepare yourself for the day, you realize that this is your fucking day today. You got to do something with it. So thanks for sharing, man. I appreciate that.
I wanted to speak about the importance of a routine real quick, because I was off my routine this week. I've been on vacation for since the 23rd or something like that. And every single day I woke up and did similar to Jason, light therapy. Not I don't do red light. I do bright ass Lux light because it's dark when I wake up because I'm waking up early and need that early stuff. But either way, I haven't been doing any of my stuff. And I missed 3 days of journaling for the first time in 6 months. And man, I fell off the rest of my game. I ate like shit those days. I missed a day of the gym, and I haven't done that in a long time. Not a day of the gym, but a day in my routine of going to the gym. I go every other day. I don't go every day. But missing your routine, it's so easy to fall off all those other things. And it really just shows the importance of that routine. And then past that, I was Eric, you had mentioned earlier in your nighttime journal where your day, you never give yourself an A. You give yourself maybe a B-, maybe a C+. There's a lot of importance, I think, of making sure that that's not a shameful thing that you're giving yourself, because shame can stop you from then the next day, doing what you need to do. Shame's a pretty darn, I don't want to say negative emotion, because we're saying good or bad earlier. We don't have good or bad, but either way, it's an emotion that can hurt you. So making sure that you're really objective about those things. And it's not that Tony is shit because he didn't get his stuff done today. It's it was just a C day, a D- day on your virtues. And tomorrow can be an A. I think shame can get in the way of things. So I just want to make sure that when you're, at least for me, when I'm doing my objective review at the end of the night, I need to make sure not to shit on myself too much, because that's just going to hurt me the next day. And Lisa, you asked about light therapy real quick. She just had a question in chat. I just use one of those bright ass like sun lamps, to wake me up in the morning and help sleep at night. So.
Gotcha. Hey guys, I gotta get out here. Just gonna text my wife. She's yelling at me, so I'm gonna get out of here. But you guys are more than welcome to stick around. Hope to see everybody back and talk about Stoicism, how to make your life awesome. But thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
The video last time you left, so I think it just when you leave, it's gonna end. So we're.
I'll sign it to you if you're gonna stick around. That's fine.
I can stick around for a few minutes if anyone wants to talk.
Okay. All right, guys.
Yep.
Take care. See you later.
Did anyone else want to speak to their journaling real quick? I didn't want to, because I talked for a bit too long. I wanted to make sure everyone else got a chance. Lisa, you're muted, but hey, thanks for coming, Lisa. I hope you come back again.
Yeah, this is good. Thank you.
There are way too many books to read on this subject, so you're getting ready to go into a
yeah, dive deep. What would you recommend to start?
I really like William B. Irvine's stuff. He started, I think he was in the beginning of like the modern reintroduction of Stoicism, like 2006-ish or so, 2007, like when it started coming up again. But I also put this in chat. You said Buddhism last night. There's an app that I use for meditation called Waking Up. Sam Harris runs it. He's a neuroscientist. But there's a course on that book or on that app with like 20 episodes from William B. Irvine. So if instead of reading, you can do it by voice too. And then, yeah, either way, but I put in our meetup website on comments, there's a 3-month free trial from William B. Irvine's website. So that way you don't have to pay. So.
All right, that might be my first step then.
All right, see you guys.
All right, thank you. Bye.